Today's conversation is going to be one that I think so many are going to feel because it touches something we all face at some point: change. It's not just moving from one home to another, but moving from one chapter of our lives to another. And let's be honest, it can feel overwhelming, emotional, and even a little scary. But what if you had someone in your life who could look you in the eye and say, "Relax, I've got this"? I know I could certainly use that right now. Well, today's guest has built her entire life and business about being that person. Robin McCoy is a realtor. She's also a senior home coach, a speaker, and the host of a podcast, Relax, I've Got This. And what I love about Robin is that she doesn't just help people move, she helps them make some kind of decision, an important decision of their life with clarity, with confidence, and with heart. She does work with seniors and their families who are navigating downsizing, aging in place, and all the emotions that come with those transitions. And there are many. And she brings a calm and steady presence that I think we all could use much more of. But today, we're not just talking about what Robin does, we're talking about who she is, what shaped her, what lit the fire in her that brought her to where she is now, and why she cares so deeply about helping others through these special moments. I'm Valerie Van De Zilver. I'm your host of Always Ageless. Welcome to our show today. Robin, I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you for joining us at Always Ageless.
I have been waiting for this moment for a while since I first met you. So I am so grateful to be here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, let's start out with a little bit about you. So, first of all, the tagline of your podcast, Relax, I've Got This. I do have to say there's something about those words that just lands. Where did they come from? And what does it actually mean for families that you work with?
You know, it really came about a number of years ago with just basically my real estate business, right? As a real estate agent, I was always here. Let me take care of it. I got it. Explaining the way the process works,
Yes.
whether buying or selling. And then when my business really kind of evolved into this aging space, it just kind of evolved with it. And people in these transitions, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know who they need.
No,
They don't know what to do.
no.
And so by being able to, I've got this. I've got this. You need these people? I've got that. Do you need these people? I've got that. I'm here for you. I've got your back.
Yes, yes. And I know that building trust in a real estate business is very important, although you weren't always in real estate. So let's talk about, let's go back a little bit. So, what was the young Robin like? Were you always driven? Was there something that happened in your younger years that shaped you to where you are now?
We moved around a lot when I was growing up. Every 2 to 3 years, we were in different schools, different cities, and things like that. My father was working his way up the corporate ladder, so his job was taking him to a number of places. I was born here in Dallas, and then we lived in just outside Oklahoma City, just outside Nashville, just north of Boston. Moved to Minneapolis when I was a senior in high school. That's where I graduated from school and went to college and all of that. So I think, and then I moved around quite a bit as an adult in my own career. So Indiana, California, not far from where you are,
No.
Southern California and San Francisco, and then eventually back here to Dallas after about 30 years or something. So um, just, I think being the new kid all the time, just and knowing and being so many different places, I just think it lends itself to just kind of throwing yourself into different things and not worrying about it.
Yes, that's true. And what were your jobs? Did you have were you able to work where you were? Was there something that you found that you liked a lot, or did you have a passion for becoming something?
Really, no. No. My first job, it's funny. I turned 16 And I told my dad, let's go get my driver's license like 5 minutes after I turned 16. And I
Sure.
went
Yeah.
and got a job at the Woolco store, for those that remember Woolworth Woolco,
Yeah.
and worked at the Woolco store. That was my first job. And, and then just kind of evolved into different things. I ran call centers for a long time right after I got out of college. So, the dreaded telemarketers. We were those people for a long time, and worked again retail again when I moved to Dallas, with Crate and Barrel. Maybe familiar with that store.
Yes.
So
We have a
I
store.
sold
Yeah.
furniture for them for a long time, and then it was real estate. So it all just kind of flowed into, but it's always been working with the public in some shape or form.
And was there ever a time or a situation when you realized that people need someone to say, I've got this, I'll take care of it? Or was it pretty much everything when you started working?
Well, I don't think I was cognizant of any of that. I don't think I was smart enough to see that in my younger years.
It was
I
your
don't think I
second
was,
sense, though, probably, huh?
not quite as clued in to, the emotional intelligence and all of that I might have today that we get as we grow older. Um, However, when I was working with Crate and Barrel and selling furniture, and learn to develop relationships with my clients, and knowing that what they needed, or being on the lookout for something, and I had relationships with people that I just learned how to do that, I guess, that they needed me for design of their home. I had clients that their house burned down and they had to
Oh.
refurnish their entire home. So working through things like that as well, you just learn how to understand people and communicate a little bit better.
And to have the sense that people do appreciate your help is really insightful on your part. We didn't have the tragedy of the fires, as many people here, but we just started all over again with our house and had to have all new furniture and it would have been nice to have somebody that would have guided us through that rather than every time we go, we'd say we have to repeat the story and start all over
Right.
again.
Right.
I know in my real estate business, I always took pride in the fact that, as I see you do, that they could trust me. Just let me fix I was nurse fix it. Just let me fix it.
Right. I had a client just recently. Her sister wanted her to buy this house down the street from her, and she goes, "Oh, just go buy it. Go buy it. Go buy it." She goes, "Not until Robin sees it." And I walked in. I'm like, "We can find you a better house
Yeah.
than this one."
Yeah. What a great advice. Great advice.
Great testimonial. It's a great
Yes,
testimonial.
absolutely. Um, was there a time in your life though when you felt that you were meant for sales? Did you just happen to like it with your first job? Did you just like being around people?
I don't know if it was so much sales as the relationships, right? And I'll
Oh,
be honest, I was a little fearful of sales is commission based typically, and
it is.
having that confidence in yourself at any age, that you can live on your relationships, right? And I think that's really what changed things for me. And again, just understanding that it's the relationships you build
Yes.
that sustain you.
And you went from Crate and Barrel into real estate. Is that how the progression? And what took you into real estate?
This is kind of a funny story. So I was
We'd
one
love to hear it.
Saturday, one Saturday working. I spent an entire day with this couple who were furnishing their whole house. They were both realtors, and they were hilarious and fun. It was one of my favorite days ever in that job. And I reached out to one of them, and we had a conversation. I said, "I think I might like to do that. Tell me about this." And she said, "Go get your license and call me." So I went, okay, now this is before you could do everything online, right?
Sure.
This is back in 2008, really not the best time to get a real estate license.
Well,
However, here,
I don't know if there ever is a better time than another, but
exactly. Um, so I just went off and got my license and called her a few months later, and she said, okay, here's what you want to do. And the rest is history.
and did you work with her?
She was in my real estate office. One of the things that she told me, and this is, again, goes to those relationships. She said, Robin, come work in my office. And she was an agent. She didn't own the office. It was a Keller Williams brokerage, Keller Williams office. And she was an agent there. And she said, because I was working full time still at Crate and Barrel, I needed the insurance at Crate and Barrel. I couldn't not have that,
Of
right?
course.
So those full-time jobs, right? So she said, Robin, if you ever have a client you can't handle because of your full-time job, refer them to me and I'll take care of them and you. The nice thing is I had that backup. She was a backstop for me and I never had to use her.
Oh,
Right? So I never had to let a client move over because I didn't have the bandwidth to handle it.
that's great. And then
Yeah.
how long was it until then you went into real estate full time?
Well, because it was 2008, it did take me a little bit longer
Yeah.
than I had originally planned. And I did it in this, I was full-time and then part-time real estate. And then gradually I kind of reversed that to part-time and full-time, and full-time real estate, probably 5 years. I was doing both for about 5 years. And then I just said, why am I doing this? It was really a big store discount that was keeping me there. I'm not going to lie. I had to give up a nice store discount when I left.
As they say, like working in the Hallmark store, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or for me in the chocolate store, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I understand that. But at some point in time, you made a very specific decision to focus more on older adults, on seniors and their families. What happened that made you say, this is the work I'm here to do?
Well, in 2023, so I was just kind of started out, and I will never forget the day I had to climb through my mother's apartment window to get to her. She had fallen and she couldn't get up. She had basically dragged herself from the bedroom of her apartment across her apartment to the living room, pulled herself up on the coffee table just enough to grab the phone and call me.
Call you.
I was about 30 minutes away. I probably got to her apartment in 20 and, calling my sister along the way. And we got to the door and we realized neither one of us had a key to her apartment. We'd never needed it. So it didn't occur to us. We didn't have a key. We were going to call the fire department to bust down that door when we realized the window was not locked. Threw the window open, climbed over the threshold of the window, the rocking chair in front of the window, and there she was. And we got her up off the floor eventually, but that's where all the challenges then began, right? All the things that we didn't plan for, all the signs that we ignored, all the things that we just let ride, all came crashing down on us. And those next 4 months were spent, my mom in the hospital and my mom in rehabs, my sister and I trying to figure out what we were going to do, and cleaning out an apartment of 20 years that she'd been there, maybe not quite that long. What are we going to do with all this? All of this, a lot of tears, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, a lot of feelings of helplessness. And once we got through that and we got mom settled in where she's living today, I said, if I had that much trouble and I didn't know what I was doing, and I have resources, I knew people in the senior space, I knew people that owned assisted living communities, that owned placement services, that own residential care homes. I had to pull a friend of mine out of retirement. She was a former CEO for my mother's healthcare company. And I had to pull her to get somebody to call me. So I had resources that most people don't have. And I still struggled. And I said, if I had that much trouble, imagine people that don't have the resources or don't have a Robin to help them.
Yes, and you have to think about how many people are there, right? Like you, kids like us, because we are the kids, right?
The adult children who, with all the planning or the knowing that, or not, whatever it is, right? We know our parents are aging, and yet nobody gives us this little book that says, okay, here's what could potentially happen. And this is, nobody gives you the instruction book. And there are adult children like us everywhere that have no clue either what they're doing now or what is about to befall them.
Yeah. And what to do about it. And some of us, you and I, who are still going through that journey, and we don't know what to do. It's an everyday you just don't know what to do.
And you're hoping you're making the best decisions for the ones that you love.
Yes. Yes, we do hope that. Or at least direct them in the right way, or hook them up with the right resource. Well, we're both senior home coaches. And so I know what that designation means in the way of training and commitment. But in plain language, Robin, let's explain to our listeners and our viewers, what does a senior home coach really do that a regular realtor doesn't do?
Well, and I think you would agree that realtors in general are the hub, right? If you're a real estate agent, you know the lenders and you know the inspectors, and you know enough to hook all the pieces together. It's like a bicycle wheel, and you are the hub, and everything else is the spokes. I look at that in the senior space as we are that hub, and just because we're a realtor doesn't mean that we can't help with where are you going next? Whether you're buying a house, you're renting an apartment, you're going to senior living, you're moving in with your kids, whatever that looks like for you. We have the connections to help with, if you're downsizing, you're probably going from 2,025 plus square feet down to 1,000, or fewer, right? And so, or a lifetime in a house full of possessions that it all can't go with you. So we coach, we guide, we refer, we vet those referrals so that they respect the senior. I think a lot of realtors might go into a family that has 40 years worth of, or 60 years worth of living in a house and say, okay, when you get this cleaned out, call me.
Call me. Oh, you've been in those houses too.
When you get this, when you're ready to go,
right,
call me.
Yes.
Instead of, okay, what is your timeline? Who do you need? How can we help you decide what is going with you to Austin, to the senior living community, to be near your daughter, that it can't all go. So how are we going to make these decisions, and how do we get things moving out the door so you don't get overwhelmed?
So then wouldn't you agree that the real estate agent, the typical realtor, as we just in our last question, is really, they're the hub of the real estate transaction. But the senior home coach is so far beyond that, because we look at the family, at the person, we look at their emotions, at all of the things that they are going to give up, that they know they have to part with. And it's not even close to being a real estate transaction for us. And wouldn't you say that in many of your experiences with families and their adult children, that there may not even be a real estate transaction involved?
There may not be. And, I've had people ask me, because I do talks and seminars about, even aging in place. So I am a member of the National Aging in Place Council.
Yes.
And people look at me and say, why would you do that? It does seem a bit counterintuitive for a person who is ultimately paid when a house is sold. And yet, I want people to be where they can be, where they want to be, as long as they're there safely.
Yes.
And if I can help them create a space where they can live happy and healthy, then I'm all about it.
Yes.
I'm all about it.
And then you never know where that journey is going to lead you, because those people who maybe don't buy or sell a home through you may be involved with a real estate transaction sometime in the future, or they come to one of your coaching sessions. And let's just move on to what you just said. So we know that about 80% of what we call baby boomers, those of us who are older adults, seniors, want to age in place. And what you and I will call, I think, for right now, aging in place is age in their home. Okay, because we know that aging in place is much more than that.
Sure.
But fewer than 20% of them actually do. So that gap, that huge gap, what's causing it, Robin? And what are families getting wrong, or what are they missing?
I think it is a lack of conversations. It's just having the conversations early so that not only the individual themselves, but their adult children or anybody else that is maybe supporting them, whether it's adult children, whether it's nieces, nephews, grandchildren, whatever those people are, to them, that they understand, one, we'll just say the older adults, what they want. And then, and I always say, you can't predict the future, right? We cannot foresee illness and loss and those
Yeah.
sorts of things. They when they happen, they happen. And so by planning ahead and having the conversations, okay, mom, you want to stay in this house. Unfortunately, all the bedrooms and showers are upstairs.
Yes.
So what do we need to do? Does it make sense to turn the dining room into a bedroom and turn that half bath into a full shower and the expense of that? Or do we perhaps move into a smaller home so that that's all on one floor? It's having conversations and planning. Or, great, Dad, I know that you love living in this house. There's just so much stuff in it. I'm afraid you're going to trip and fall. So let's start moving some stuff out of the way so that in the future, should you need a walker or a cane, these things are out of the way so it doesn't cause a problem. It's just planning ahead and not being afraid to have those conversations about it.
That's definitely a reality check, so to speak, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of all the people that you've worked with, let's talk about a client situation. You don't have to use names, where you went so far that beyond selling a house, and maybe even a house wasn't involved, where you know that what you did for those people really changed their life, really was life changing.
I've dealt with, people passing away and families out of state, or at least not in Dallas, and helping families resolve that. Right? There's a house and they are 1,000 miles away, and we've got probate and wills and no wills, that sort of thing, which I think having someone that can navigate not only the real estate portion of this, but understanding the probate portion in the state that you're in. Because as you know, probate, or the wills and probate and all those estate laws, are different state to state.
Yes.
So understanding what it is in the state of Texas, right, is important. I had another client that, bless her heart, she had moved here years ago to take care of her aging mother and aunt. And both of them passed away in their 80s. And my client was in the house, and she was under the impression that she had to live in that house, that she couldn't sell it, even though it was left to the estate, and just all the things that she thought was in the will. And I said, why don't you call the gentleman that was the executor and ask him? Just ask him if you can sell this house. Turns out she could. And I'll tell you what, she was so excited because she felt like she was just living in a mausoleum. Everything in it was her mother's and her aunt's.
Oh,
Everything, it was just all them. And it was a big house for now one person and two little dogs, right? And it was too much for her. Yard upkeep, all that stuff. And so I said, all right, let's get to work. And I'll tell you what, she had that house cleaned out faster than I could even turn around. She's like, okay, tell me what to do. We did an online estate auction. Everything was gone. She moved up north into North Texas where she grew up, and she is posting on Facebook of all the places that she remembers when she was a girl, and she is just living her best life up there now. She is so happy.
how exciting for her.
Yeah, and I love
And
that. I
and
love
how
that.
lucky that she found you to help with that.
So I love that for her.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Now your podcast started out as kind of as a real estate show, I think. Is
Mhm.
that true? And
Yeah.
evolved into embracing life after 60. So walk me through that evolution. What made you realize the show either needed to grow or into something bigger, or you decided that you wanted it to?
A little bit of both. You know, truly, there's only so much real estate I can talk about. It gets a little boring. You know, if you're doing a weekly show, you know, you've got to keep it interesting, right? And
Yes,
so you've got to keep things
yes.
new, and interest
That's why
rates are
you're here this
boring.
week. Yes, one
Yeah.
interesting show. Yes,
And interest rates are boring.
yes.
Um, so I was evolving it. Pardon me. I was, you know, doing this, and then I kind of evolved it into a second podcast and called it Crushing It with Your Tribe, because I knew so many cool people. You know, I know people that are search and rescue. They'll go out, like they went down when the floods were happening here most recently in South Texas, or when Hurricane Harvey came through Houston, and they're search and rescue. I know zoologists that take care of birds, of the big predatory birds and things like that. Just know some cool people, and that was a lot of fun. But then once I started realizing how little I knew after the situation with my mom, and started looking at how little education there was out there for people, that's when it turned to just everything life after 60. It's not life after 60 isn't just what senior community am I going to move to, right?
No,
It's not
no, it is not.
but people think like, oh, getting old and talking about it's just about senior living. No, it's about traveling solo, right? It's about keeping your brain healthy so that you can live independently, or you don't, understanding what dementia looks like so you can recognize it in somebody you love. It's eating healthfully. So many of our seniors are so malnourished and they don't even know it.
Yes.
And so it's
And they
everything
and they
that we
eat
don't
cheese
talk
and
about.
yes, and they eat cheese and crackers for dinner and
Yes.
say, "Oh, I'm fine. I had cheese and crackers for
My
dinner."
mother,
My mom, yeah,
canned soup and
yeah,
frozen meals, because that's all she could really stand up and do.
sure.
And she's like, what do you mean I'm malnourished? I have vegetables. Well, they've got the life cooked, every nutrient cooked right out of them. Right. So that she was full, she was satisfied, but she was
Yes.
not getting the nutrients that she required.
Yeah. Yes. I know. I know. That's true. That is so true. So you grew your podcast, and with that, was that at the same time that you were doing you're expanding your business as well into working more with older adults?
Yeah, that's kind of I think that's probably about the time I discovered the senior home coach, that I learned who they were. Kathy Corridon here in Dallas. She reached out to me. So I'm not even sure how she learned of me. I don't remember now, but we had coffee and she introduced me to Catherine.
Oh,
Ambrose. So that, and
yes,
she introduced me to the senior home coach call. And then that's how I met Catherine. So then, of course, that's how I met you. And that's how I
yes,
met Sam. And that's how I met, all these people that have taught me so much. Right. It's again, the relationships that we build. So now my podcast is out there. I've got listeners around the world, which is always kind of cool when you look and you see somebody in England have listened to your
yes,
podcast.
yes,
That's always kind of cool. Um, and so I also know senior home coaches with the same heart and
yes,
the same resources that I have here in Dallas, in Baltimore, and in Minneapolis, and in
yes,
Southern
we do.
California, and in Wichita, and everywhere else. And so now that message continues to go out, and the more we can all talk about it, and the more that we are in relationships like you and I are in this relationship, the better we can help ourselves, our fellow adult children of aging parents, and our aging parents also.
And don't you find that in your work that so many of the conversations and so many of the scenarios, so to speak, and the situations actually involve the adult children of the
Yes.
aging parent? And so many times they live somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So they might be parents in Texas where you are, but maybe the kids live in California or somewhere else. And they need your assistance in being a resource
Yeah.
for helping through that transaction or transition, whatever it is.
Well, and it is, and it's having someone, because one of the things with my mom, she's right here. Right? She's right here. I didn't, when we moved her to her residential care home where she is, it's 30 minutes away. And at the beginning, I thought that was too far. I wanted her here,
Yes.
not
Mhm.
here. And yet the place that I felt best about was there. So that is where she moved to. But when you can't be right here, you
Mhm.
want somebody who is going to treat your parent with respect and care and concern as you would. They are almost your stand in. And that is why I think the senior home coach movement, if you will, is so important, because you are in Minneapolis and I am here. But because you know a senior home coach in Minneapolis who knows me, then you know I am the same as her.
Yes. But we're on calls every morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just someone we know that we met at a conference or a mastermind or whatever once a year. We're together every day or almost every day, and we learn from each other in ways that if you're not in this group, you can't even imagine what we learned. You think, like, how could you be on a call every morning? And for us to get up at 6 o'clock every morning, and I
For
certainly don't
you.
show my face every day like you guys do. But you guys on mid American East Coast, I mean, you've already been up, had breakfast, and worked for
Yeah, we've been up for hours at that
Yes,
point. I'm
yes,
already driving to the office when that call happens.
absolutely. So tell us now, in with your podcast, you're now interviewing experts in aging, people in elder care, brain health, legal planning, all of those different topics, and topics that you maybe didn't originally specialize in. So how has hosting that show changed what you know and changed you?
Everything. It is like I'm going to college every week. I am taking a college level, graduate level class every week when I have the opportunity to talk to former special agents with the FBI
Yes.
who are talking about how scams and how to be alerted by them, and what to do if you suspect someone you love is involved in something. I get the opportunity to talk with doctors and talking about, again, brain health, and how we can, and you learn that what you learned in health class when you were in elementary school about once the brain cells are dead, that they're dead and there's no hope for them. That's wrong. We have since learned that you can support your brain, you know? So I'm going to college every week when I get to talk to these people, and I am learning about technology that has come along to help,
Yes.
again, people age in place. And how can we use technology? And I'm going to say the dreaded AI word, but it, you know, how can we use these things to help keep not only our seniors safe, but happy in the home they choose to live in?
Yes, and we've learned so much about age tech, and
Yeah.
I talk to people who are supposedly experts and say, "Well, you know about age tech, don't you?" No, I don't know anything about age tech. So it's
Well,
pretty amazing.
and at the, I think we all know, we've all heard the statistics that by, what is it, 2035, all the boomers are going to be 65. I'm 62, so I'm a young boomer,
You are
right? But I fall in there, right?
very young.
I say I'm a boomer that identifies as a Gen Xer.
Yes,
But we're all going to be, and for the first time in history, there's going to be more people over 65 than under the age of 18 in our country.
very, very
And there's a
true. Yes.
lot of reasons for that, right? So we've got to figure this out. Not only ourselves and taking care of our aging loved ones, but how are we as a society going to take care of this aging population?
That is a good question, and one that fascinates me and doesn't have near enough conversation in what I think is important. So let's talk about that. We hear people talk about aging, and we hear terms like 55 plus or 60 plus. But if in fact, Robin, people are living longer, and they are, my mom's 106 and a half, believe it or not, and your mom and your stepmom are both in their 80s. So if people are living longer and there's going to be more older people, really is 55 plus even an important term anymore? And I have this feeling I'd like your opinion on that. Don't you think that it's put in one big category? Like everybody from 55 to when they die is all the same. They're
Yeah, they
all
put them all in
old.
one big bucket.
Right, right. They're all old. But up to that, we have infants, we have toddlers, we have young children, we have elementary, junior high, high school, teenagers, whatever. But once you're 55, everybody's the same.
Yes. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
No, it couldn't be. And you maybe have heard me say this. You've gone this journey with me, my passion partner here. I think there should be another style of some types of clothes for people who are older, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
who does that? There nothing. Once
No.
you're either a Mrs. or you're a petite or you're a plus. That's it. But yes, the world is very different. And so let me ask you, if you were on a panel or an individual, and you were asked, knowing that, Robin, knowing that the world is going to change and this many people are going to be over 65 or over 80, whatever the number is, what would you do, or what would you like to see be done about that?
Do you mean from a personal perspective or from like a societal perspective?
I think either. Let's talk about those.
So I think from a personal perspective, meaning an individual, not necessarily my perspective, but I think we as the lower end of that, the 55, 65 people aged in there, need to really get a handle on planning for our future. We have got to make sure we have wills and trusts. We have got to make sure somebody knows where these are. We have to talk about your financial situation because honestly, and we don't like to talk about it, but every day there's going to be one day that you don't wake up.
Yes.
There is. Nobody's getting out of here alive. And so whoever is left on that day is going to take care of whatever you leave behind. And so make sure you make it as easy as possible for those people who love you and are going to be grieving you. So
Yes.
make the plan. The plans can change. You can't predict, like I said, illness and loss and all those things. And yet you can start communication and conversations and planning. Now, from a societal aspect, I think that we have to stop marginalizing our older adults. My stepmom says we become invisible. She's 83. And she just says we become invisible. People stop seeing us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very sad and very unfortunate, because just because you're 83 does not mean you don't have value.
But see, they're considered, but then you're in the category of you're old.
But you're
Old.
not.
You're old.
That's what I'm
And
saying. Is you gotta,
old is this huge, big category, right?
So maybe we just need to change. Yeah, because everybody's old, or you're a senior. You're a senior citizen. You're a senior citizen. Well, I don't feel like a senior citizen. You know, I don't act like one, whatever that means.
So my mom's 106. She's in an assisted living community. She's only been there 2 months. And she says, I'm not old enough to be here. So they have a craft class. And the craft class is to make a bookmark. And that's okay. Some people read books. And then for their activities, for their field trips, they go out and they go to stores. And the ladies around my mom yesterday in the lobby were saying, we don't need more stuff. What are we going to buy? We don't, and not only that, we don't have room for it. We're in 400 square foot apartments if we got a big apartment. So
It's
again,
true.
you know, what could we be doing with those people different than
just, sometimes I think what happens is we start treating them like children.
we do?
Because they're in assisted living, that they are, and they need, they can't drive anymore, or maybe they need, mobility devices. So all of a sudden we're treating them like children.
Yes.
And we're not children. They're not children. They are adults who have lived lives, that have had many, many experiences, that could tell you stories that, that kids today, listen to me, kids today would never understand.
No.
Right? The
No.
stories of my mom having to go down to the creek to get water.
Yeah.
Because she lived in rural Arkansas when she was growing up. So
Or
these are stories that are going to get lost. They're getting lost.
Our World War II babies. You know, we interviewed
Exactly.
Paul McCartney's mom, and she told us about growing up in Liverpool and how it was bombed every night.
Yeah.
And she got up in the morning and walked around to see whose houses got bombed that night. That's what the kids do. Oh, let's go see whose house got bombed, right?
Wow.
But we'll never hear those stories. Once those people are gone, we'll never hear those stories again. And you and I were fortunate enough, if you were at CSA last year, to hear a man who drives around the country and interviews older people who have memory issues, puts them in the van and drives them around and asks them questions about their life. And we just aren't doing near enough of that, are we?
No, there's actually, and I can't think of the name of it, but there is a creator on, I think it's Instagram, who is sitting in senior living communities and just chatting with people and hearing their stories.
Yeah.
And they're funny. And they are great stories.
They are. They're wonderful stories. And so, for example, in my mom's community, they take people to walk on the pier because we're right at the ocean. So they have a pier walk once a week. Mom says, but only one person gets on that bus. She said, I can't go because I can't walk on the pier. And it occurred to me, okay, so why don't they put the people in wheelchairs and on walkers, take them into that van, take them to the pier, and walk them down on the pier?
It's just an unfortunate perspective that I think society has on the community that is 70 years old and above, right? Especially when they live in assisted living does not mean that they are what's the word? That
They're
they're
old.
incapable.
Yeah.
Right? They're not just because I am 75 does not mean that I'm incapable. I
No.
may need a little help because my body is a machine and machines wear out, right? I mean,
But what's
that's
sad is their minds aren't gone.
no. No,
Their
my
minds aren't gone.
grandmother, she lived, and nobody knows really how old she was because a lady never tells her age, but she was well into her 90s. She was well into her 90s. She outlived 2 husbands and 2 children, and she was still smart as a whip and still had all the opinions, but her body was crashing on her, right?
Yes.
Osteoporosis and all those things that when a body ages, it's a machine. Things start to wear out. I went and got injections in my knees just yesterday to get them all lubed up so they'd stop hurting. So, but that doesn't make a 90-year-old woman less of anything because she could sit there and talk to you about presidents and women's rights and all kinds of stuff. She was feisty, that one.
Yes. Yes. Or riding their horses. I mean, imagine at 106 years old. And my mom was one of 16 kids. I said, so how did y'all live in a house?
Yeah.
Right. What did you do with 16 children? Yeah. And our parents' experiences were so very different.
Yeah.
Robin, you're a founding member of the National Aging in Place Council, the Texas chapter. And I'd like to know what you see is the most urgent thing that the senior serving industry needs to change to truly serve this generation.
Stop working in silos, right? We are all serving the same community. And yet I feel like we're working. Okay, nope. I do this. I am in placement. If you need me, call me. I am in home health. If you need me, call me. And even some realtors, I'm the real estate agent. Call me when you need me. Versus, okay, placement person, okay, home health person, okay, real estate person. How can we all work together to make sure that that senior, so that Sarah is safe and healthy and taken care of and not taken advantage of when it comes time for something different for Sarah, right? That they aren't taken advantage of with the phone calls that somebody says, here, let me sell your house for you, and then you can afford to go live in assisted living.
Mm-hmm.
Or just making sure that we know the people that are also circling around, that we know who they are, so that we can protect our seniors to the extent that they need that. I'm not saying that, again, just because you're old, you need to be protected. That's not what I'm saying. But there are a lot of seniors out there that do need help and protection. And so we want to make sure, I think that if all of us working in the senior space, calling it whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Get out of our silos and come together like we do in our senior home call, right? There's a lot of real estate agents in that call, but there's also placement professionals, and there's also home health professionals, and there's gerontologists, and a variety of different professions in this group. And we're all learning how that industry works and that one works. And when do I need to call in my placement professional, or when do I need to reach out to a home health professional?
Yes. Or not even maybe needing a move manager. What can we do on our own? What have we learned about that process?
Yes.
Which I think is one of the most traumatic ones that older adults and their families have to go through, is if they do need to move and or downsize. how
Well, and that's
tragic
one of
that
the
is.
things that I didn't even know existed. I did not
No.
know there was such a thing as a senior move manager until I got involved with the senior home coach. I'm like, what? There is? And then I looked it up for and they've even got a national association. There's enough of them out there to create an association.
And
But
they do.
in Dallas, there's like one. In Dallas, we are a big place.
Yes.
So I think that there is also a need out there for our moving professionals to train their people in working in the senior space, because there is a way to do that as well.
What do you think, Robin, embracing life, let's say after 65, really means to you personally and to other people?
Well, it's like you said, we're not all in the same bucket, right? We're not just old. So I'm 62. I don't have a problem telling people my age. I am 62. I'll be 63 this summer. And I don't feel like what I thought 63 was going to be when I was 25. That's when you're 25, that sounds like 65 sounds really old.
Yes.
When you're 62, it's just right there and it doesn't feel that way at all.
No.
And so I think embracing life, I met a woman who was 68 years old, and the way she walked and the way she talked, you would have thought she was 98.
Yeah.
She was like, I said something, I don't remember what I said. And she goes, well, I am 68 years old. And I went, that's not old, because that's only 5 years older than me. So I can assure you that's not old. And yet I think there's a lot of people that, because what you said earlier, you hit 55 or 65 and they put you in a bucket that now you're retired and old. So people believe that. Mm-hmm. And so embracing life after 60 for me just means you've got potentially another 40 years to live. Right? And now you're a whole lot smarter than you were 40 years ago. I know I am. But that's why they say with age comes wisdom.
Well, and if in fact we're all going to live longer, then you do have 40 years.
You've got 40 years. I mean,
that's a long time.
Be 90. My mother's going to be 90. Your mother is 107.
Yeah,
almost. Our genetics say that barring anything tragic, we're going to live a long time.
Yes.
And I'm not giving up the ghost right now. I got some things I want to do.
So this morning I was talking about planning my mom's birthday party. And all of a sudden it flashed in my mind, well, what if she doesn't live to 107? And of course she's going to live to 107, right?
She lived to 106. Why wouldn't she live to 107?
I know. This is true. Robin, unfortunately, our time is almost up, but I do want to ask you, for our listeners and our viewers, if you could sit down with someone who is overwhelmed, scared, avoiding these big decisions, what would you say to them?
Relax. I got you. I got this. I would just say, call me. I have a client who procrastinated picking up the phone and calling me for a year. And then when we sat down together, she's like, why did I wait a year to call you? Because I was able to give her just a clear thought process on how to go do the next thing that she wants to do. So just breathe and call me. It's never too early.
Great answer. Great answer. Absolutely great answer. Robin, this has been a really meaningful and interesting and pleasant conversation. I'm so glad that we had this. It's been way overdue, and we'll have to have you back again. What I love the most is that you remind us that these transitions, they can feel overwhelming, but you don't have to face them alone. And there is someone like Robin who's here that will help you. If any of our listeners, our viewers are in Texas, Robin can help you. And if not, we do have resources all over the country. We can be your referral resource. And you don't have to be afraid of these. And if you are a child in Robin's area, your parent is in another area, she's also glad to help you. And for those of you that listen today, if something in this conversation really resonated with you, whether you're thinking about your own future or that of a family member, don't wait for a crisis. Don't wait until the call comes. Start the conversation, take the first step. If you don't even know where you should begin, that's what we're here for. And as Robin says, relax. She's got it. And remember that age is just a number and life is meant to be lived, always ageless. Thank you, Robin McCoy. Thank you so much for being a guest on our show today.
I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much, Valerie.
Bye bye.